Have you ever bought some flour and when you look at it, it's like big, all nice, smooth, like perfectly structured buds where it's just super big, super dense when you drop it on your rolling tray. It makes like a thud. Well, it might have looked like that because it was loaded with synthetic hormones to increase the yield of the plant overall, and it might not actually be the safest thing to smoke. When I was first shopping around in dispensaries years ago and I had a lot of options, I would try to go to the places that had the biggest, densest buds because in my head, I thought that was the best. I'm getting nugs, they gotta be big ol' hard, dense nugs, right? Well, after a while of shopping around, I learned more about PGRs or plant growth regulators. Plants themselves have their own plant growth regulators, but what people do is they use artificial hormones to affect the growth of your plant. So in the case of cannabis, usually what they use it for is to increase the yields overall. Most of the plant growth regulators out there make the buds bigger, they make them denser. So when they go to chop that plant down, they got 1.5 pounds instead of under a pound or something like that. The goal of it is to get more so they can sell more, but you're actually sacrificing quality at a certain point. Now, there's a lot of PGRs out there. A lot of stuff is outlawed. Most of the stuff that people are using and the stuff that's actually really bad for you has been outlawed for decades. Just a lot of these shady nutrient companies are sneaking in PGRs so people are getting better results. But they're hiding some of these PGRs under like proprietary blends or this is our secret recipe and we don't have to disclose. But at the end of the day, they're doing it so they can make more money. They're going to get more weight per plant. The buds are going to be bigger. They're going to be heavier. So when you look at it in terms of, well, we sell everything by weight, let's just get more of it. You come up with weird schemes like let's load them up with PGRs and cancer-causing chemicals so that we could just make more money. Easy. While PGRs can make your buds bigger and denser and it can give your bud a better structure, make it look better overall, you are sacrificing quality. Usually you're going to get less terpenes, less cannabinoids overall. And while you have larger buds or more bud, they're not as potent. So when businesses and growers decide to use these PGRs, they're really sacrificing the quality so they can get more quantity. In a lot of cases, the bud's not going to smell as good, it's not going to taste as good, it's not going to get you as high, but you're going to have more of it. They turned your weed into mid so you could have twice as much. Cool. So for some people, it may be hard to avoid bud with PGRs in it. Just because you're seeing nicely structured, dense buds doesn't necessarily mean it's loaded with PGRs, but it might be. There's a few things that if they all go together, maybe you have PGRs in there. If your bud's just super dense, I've experienced this many times where the bud is just way heavier than it looks like it should be. If you're holding like a little nug, but it's like a little rock, you drop it and it goes thud on your rolling tray, it's probably loaded with PGRs. The really dense stuff, the really heavy stuff, where it doesn't look like it should weigh that much, but it weighs that much. That's probably loaded with PGRs. I've also heard from growers sometimes PGR weed is loaded with orange hairs. Cannabis plant will naturally produce those orange hairs, but sometimes PGRs cause the plant to have way more than normal. So if you see something where you're like, oh my God, this has way more orange hair than I've ever seen on a bud, it might have PGRs in it. But for some people, they really can't avoid it. Some people only have one source they get from the same grower. The plug has the same supplier. You might have two options, but they're both PGRs. Some people can't avoid it. But if you're shopping in a dispensary and you're looking at some of the buds, some of it looks like it has PGR, some of it doesn't. They're probably using the same growing methods on both. So you could just probably ask them what nutrients they use. Although we have mentioned before, some people lie and they sneak PGRs into organic nutrients. So organic cannabis is what you really want. If you've ever heard of living organic soil or living soil cannabis, I think that, in my opinion, is the best weed that you can get. So if you suspect your bud might have PGRs in it, there are a few things to look for we mentioned in the video, but I'll just go over them again. If it's just way heavier than it looks like it should be, if it's like unbelievably dense, if it doesn't have that strong of a smell or doesn't look like it has that many trichomes on it, if the color looks a little dim to you, if it's not like a bright green color, if it looks a little brown, sometimes PGR weed ends up looking a little brown after it's cured depending on what they used. Or if it has like a chemical taste when you smoke it. If it tastes like chemicals, it's probably loaded with them. So at the end of the day, the truth about PGR weed is most people have probably smoked it. Sometimes you probably get it without realizing it if you have a lot of different sources. And from a growing perspective, if you use PGRs, you're just going to make your buds less potent, but you're going to get more weight. So So if you just want a lot of mids that give you cancer and cause liver damage, load them up with PGRs, eh? If you want to smoke with me, tune into my live streams on Twitch. I go live after 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can support my channel for free with Twitch Prime. And if you got some non-PGR weed that's just got some crazy smells given off, and you're trying to hide those smells, watch this video for how to hide the smell of your bud. Have a lit day, my dudes.